Hey everyone, this is Steve. I'm going to go through how to format our transcripts. There are 3 different types of formats that we have, and I'll go through each of the specifics of those. But first, I'm just going to go through a few of the basics that apply to all the different types of formats. And so first, I strongly recommend that you use Microsoft Word, and you used a version of Microsoft Word that can save files as docx files. And that's going to be most newer versions of Microsoft Word. If you have an old, I think maybe 2003 or before version of Microsoft Word, then you can't save it as a docx file, and oftentimes there are formatting issues with using that version of Microsoft Word. So I'm assuming here that you're working in Microsoft Word with a somewhat new version, again, one that can save as a docx file. And most of what we use is the default in Microsoft Word. So Calibri font, size 11, black color. The page layout is mostly the default. The margins are the default, 1 inch on all sides. The orientation, of course, is portrait. The size of the page is letter, which is 8.5 inches by 11 inches. So I think maybe the older version of Word is a slightly different page size, which is a big issue. So you do want to, I guess, check to make sure that your default is for letter 8.5 by 11 inches. And the paragraph spacing is something that we do different than Microsoft Word's default. And you'll see here in this spacing section that this is in the page layout ribbon or tab in the ribbon. But our spacing that we use is 0 points before and after the paragraphs. And let me show you in the transcript. The default looks something like this. There's an extra space after paragraph breaks. And that is not what we want. We want them to be 0. And you'll notice that if, it's what happens with some people, if they are typing their transcript or copying it in and they have a paragraph space after, before they submit it, sometimes they'll go through and kind of take out these extra spaces so that there's not as much space. And this is incorrect. It might even look somewhat similar, like if we change the font spacing after each paragraph to like 12 point. This looks very similar to what we're trying to do, but it's not right. For standardization, we want to have 0 points of space after each paragraph, and we have a separate line in between each paragraph or in between each speaker change. All right, that's it as far as the page layout goes. In every transcript, there's going to be a header and a footer. The header should put the word title, and then it should copy the name of the audio file that you're transcribing. And don't add .mp3 or .wav or the file extension for the audio file, just the name of the file. And one thing to really note here is that this should be gray font. The color should be gray, not black. And this is important because it's a little tricky. Like, I'm going to change this to black right now. If you notice this, when I'm not activated in the header, I can just double click up here to go into the header. When I'm not up there, then it looks like it's gray. The title does, but it's still black in that if you print the transcript, it's going to print black just like the rest of the content is black. And what we want to do with our format is we want the title and the page number to be a little bit less pronounced when customers are printing the transcripts. And so we want those to actually be gray. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to change the font color. And it might not show the drop down here with this video, but if you go to the font color, and there's going to be a list of different colors, and the far left list is a grayscale, and it starts at white and it goes down to gray. And I just click the bottom gray on that far left column. But as long as you're gray, you're going to be fine. Whether it's the exact gray that I'm using or not is a little less important than it be a gray color. The footer is the same. It should be gray. And if you can always download a template like this and paste your transcript into it so that things are formatted right. Or if you're going to add a page number, you can easily do that. You just hit Insert from the ribbon and Page Number, and you hit, there's a drop down, and you can insert a page number to the bottom of the page, and specifically the bottom right of the page. Again, if you do that, it's going to make it black, and you need to change that color so that it's gray. Some of the common errors that we see with transcripts are if in the header you've copied and pasted something and you've accidentally added a couple of extra lines, you see that pushes the content of the transcript down, and it'll do that on every single page. So you need to make sure that the header doesn't have these extra lines, and that goes the same for the footer. If there's extra lines after the page number, then it pushes the content up, and it'll do that on every page. So you want to make sure that that page number is low enough so that the content is not being pushed up. And that's the basics for all transcripts. Now going to the most common transcript format, which is the final draft standard format. Standard is going to have indents between the speaker label and the content. And up here, there's the ruler that allows you to set hanging tabs and different indents, and that should be set at 1 inch. And the exception to this would be if, say, you had, somebody that wanted you to label their name, a customer that wanted to label it Dr. Michael Johnson, and you see that that name stretches beyond the 1 inch mark. Well, in that case, I'm going to select all of my content. I'm going to move the hanging indent a little bit further. Now, you don't want to have a really long name and then be scrunching the content, and then have to push this content all the way over here. It doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense. So names shouldn't be too long that you're having to really move that hanging indent over. But in most cases, it's going to fit at 1 inch. If it doesn't fit at 1 inch, it should be fine at 1.5 inches. Other things for formatting, I've mentioned there should be a line in between the changes in speakers, or if there's a new paragraph within one of the speakers' kind of content, then there should be a line there as well. But this is the format that you're going to follow most frequently. Now, the probably second most frequent is for the final draft simplified format. The simplified format has everything the same. The only thing different is that there's no indentation here. There's no hanging indents. And so there's a couple, I guess if I'm converting this, what I need to do is I need to remove the hanging indent, and then I'm going to remove these tabs so that the content looks like that. So this is what the format for the simplified transcript is going to look like. Then the third format, which is the rough draft, is kind of like the simplified format, except that there are no speaker labels. And so, of course, you would never do the full transcript with speaker labels and then remove them after. That would be totally unnecessary for the rough draft. With rough draft format, you're just not going to ever add speaker labels as you're doing the transcription. And there's going to be a new paragraph break when each time that the speaker changes. And so in this instant, I had 2 paragraphs here attributed to the same speaker. Well, the paragraph break should only happen when there's a speaker change. So that content needs to be moved up. So you can see here, if the customer is reading this and they know what our format's like, they know that this is one person speaking, then it switches to the next person, then it switches to the third person. The note here is that if, say you're doing a transcript of like a sermon or a lecture, something where there's one speaker, then rather than have one massively long paragraph, you can break that up into separate paragraphs in logical points in the transcript. Again, that's if there's one speaker. Those are the 3 different formats. Let's see, I think that the most common errors that are made are with that, the easy one of, it's kind of a simple one, but the spacing after the paragraph, that needs to be set to 0. The gray font and or putting the word title, those are probably the most common errors that are made. And if you have any questions, just please hop over to Slack and send a message. There's a formatting channel. That's probably the best place for any formatting questions.